Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen Sayyidina wa Maulana Abil Qasim Muhammad wa ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin al-mazlumin al-muntajabin al-muntaqabin al-mayamin la siyama ala al-imam al-muntazar wal hujjat ath-thani ashar واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وجعلني خالصا لوجهك الكريم يا الله. صلوات على محمد وعلى أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. Brothers and sisters, of course, this is lecture number 2 on the same topic, life after death. First of all, I would like to remind you what we discussed last Saturday. We discussed the concept of death and life, the relationship between death and life in the Islam and in other major ideologies. We discussed the reasons for the resurrection. We discussed the very famous objection raised by the people who do not believe in the Day of Judgment, that who will give life to these rotten bones. We discussed that the resurrection, according to Shia faith, it will be spiritual as well as physical. Our bodies will be raised as well. We discussed few other things, record of our deeds and few other things we discussed last Saturday. Now there are further concepts related to the life after death, which we read in Quran Majid as well as in the ahadith of the Holy Prophet and in the ahadith of Masumi. There is another thing which is called the concept of witnesses. Of course, Almighty Allah knows each and everything, but there is a concept of witnesses on the Day of Judgment. This contains the aspect of humiliation. Of course, a person who has done something wrong, he will be humiliated on the Day of Judgment. It will be a day of mockery. He will be humiliated. Of course, Almighty Allah is a sattar in this world. He conceals the defects and the uyub and the guna and sins of a person which he commits in this world. Until and unless the person himself wants to expose himself, there is guna kabira, a major sin, ghibat. Even we are not allowed to unfold and disclose any sin of a person. Until and unless it is going to affect the whole community, then we are allowed. But if a person is not willing to expose his sin, he wants to do, although he is doing wrong thing, but he wants to do it in private, we are not allowed to expose. Almighty is Sattar, and we are also instructed to conceal the defects of others. But what about the Day of Judgment? On the Day of Judgment, although Almighty knows everything, but a person who has committed sins in this world, he will be exposed on the Day of Judgment, and thus he will be humiliated. So there is concept of witnesses, in which we read in Quran Majid a very famous surah, Surah Yasin, the chapter 36 and the verse number 65, اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. On the Day of Judgment, we will set a seal on the mouth. It will be a phase of Qiyamah, not during the whole process, but in a phase of Qiyamah it will happen that we will set a seal on their mouth, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet shall bear witness to all that they did. Similarly, in another surah, Surah Fussilat, chapter number 41 and verse number 20, the similar thing is explained. Hatta iza ma ja'uha shahida alayhim sam'uhum wa absaruhum wa juluduhum. Sam'uhum yani ear, absaruhum eyes, and juluduhum their skin. They will all bear witness against them. And in chapter 99, Surah Zilzal, very famous surah of Quran Majid, we read, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ وَحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. Even this land, even this earth, it will bear witness. When the earth is taken to her utmost conversion and man asks, what may this mean? On that day will this earth declare its reports, because your Lord has inspired it to do so. So even the land will bear witness against the people who have done something wrong on this earth. Now this was the concept of witnesses on the day of judgment. Now another thing which is related to the life after death, on the day of judgment, there is a concept of Pul-e Sirat, the passageway. In Quran, in Surah Maryam, the 19th chapter, verse number 71 and 72, we read, وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْضِيًّا. There is not one of you who shall not pass through the confines of the hell. Such is the absolute decree of your Lord. We will deliver those who fear us, but the wrongdoers shall be left to endure its torments on their knees. Now, we don't know much about Pul-e Sirat, very honestly. This is a passageway, but as it is mentioned in Quran and in other ahadith of Masumin, we have an understanding of Pul-e Sirat. This is a passageway, this is a bridge which is laid over the hell, and everybody is supposed to cross that bridge. And at the end of that bridge is paradise. In one of the ahadith of Masumin, we read the categories of people who will be walking on that bridge. In which Masum says, some people will pass the bridge as quick as a lightning. For light, it's no problem to cross any medium. If it is transparent, it can cross anything. So Masum says, some people will pass the bridge as quick as a lightning. Some pass it over as fast as a steedy horse. Others like the pedestrians. A group will go on leaning on their hands and feet, and some are hanged by their hands, trying to pass over the blaze of hell. So the hell catches some and leaves some to go to the gardens of bliss. So this is the concept of Pul-e Sirat. We don't know much about Pul-e Sirat or the passageway or this bridge, but it does exist. As-siratu haqqun. Even in the Talqeen, which is said to the person who has died, we read there, As-siratu haqqun, was-siratu haqqun. That as-sirat is also haqq. Then there is another concept related to the life after death or the day of judgment or Yawmul Qiyamah, and this is the concept of Mizan. Mizan, it's very logical. Mizan means a scale. If we want to determine the value of anything, we need to measure it, and it will be measured somehow. There should be some scale on the basis of which we will measure and determine the value of anything. Now, for example, if I want to say this, if I want to measure this water, it will be measured in liters, milliliters, isn't it? Similarly, for example, weight or mass of anything, we will determine it in the form of kilogram, in the unit kilogram, gram. Similarly, for example, if we want to measure the consumption of the electricity, it will be measured in units, isn't it? The meter will be there and it will measure the consumption of electricity, and accordingly the bill will be sent by the authorities. Consumption of gas, consumption of fuel, this all requires some standard according to which the consumption is measured and the value is determined. So is the case even with the poetry. We all know very well, even in Urdu, I don't know about English, but there must be some standard in English as well. But in Urdu, there is standard according to which the weight of poetry or verse, share, is measured. That does this share or does this verse carry some weight or not? There is a standard. Similarly, there is a standard to measure the value of a deed done by a person. What we do here will be measured. If it is good, to what extent it is good, and if it is bad, to what extent it is bad. In Quran Majid, in Surah Anbiya, the 21st chapter and the 47th verse, we read, وَنَزَعُ الْمَوَازِينَ الْقِسْطَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. We shall set up the scales of justice on the day of judgment. فَلَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا. And not a soul will be dealt with unjustly in the least. And if there will be a weight of a mustard seed, khardal, mustard seed, as low as a mustard seed, we will bring it to account. And enough are we as the accountant. So, kafa bina hasibin, we are the best accountants. Similarly, in Surah Tariq, chapter number 101, we read, Man saqulat mawazinuhu fahuwa fi ishatir radiyah. Then he whose scales of good deeds are heavy shall dwell in bliss. But he whose balance of good deeds are light, he will be in hellfire. فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ. So there is a concept of mizan existing on the day of judgment. It will be there. In one of the ziyarat, we read saluting our aimma, and we salute them in such a style, Assalamu alaikum ya mawazin al-amal. My salam to you, you are the mawazin al-amal. You are the scale according to which the value of a person will be determined. Whatever we do here, it will be measured. If it is close to what the Sirat and Masumin is, it will get more weight. It will be of more value. It will be more precious. And if it is away from what Masum Sirat was, what Masum's character was, it will be of less value, or rather no value, negative value. So there is, this concept also exists, the concept of scale and mizan in the life after death. Another concept, the concept of shafa'at, intercession in doomsday. Is there any concept of shafa'at? Yes. Is there any difference of opinion among the sects of Islam? No, there is no concept, there is no dispute on this concept of shafa'at. Even Sunnis, moderate Sunnis, and even Wahhabis do agree to this concept of shafa'at. They differ in such other things, as if we are allowed to ask Holy Prophet to do our shafa'at directly. Either we are allowed to request Holy Prophet right now that, O Prophet of Allah, kindly do our shafa'at, kindly do shafa'at for us on the day of judgment. Is it allowed or not? This is the point of dispute. This is the point of difference. As far as the concept of shafa'at itself is concerned, there is no dispute or no difference of opinion on this issue of shafa'at. Even in the books of Abdul Aziz bin Baz, and even in the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab, you will find the Aqidah shafa'at does exist there also. And in Quran we read, it's very clear in Surah Baqarah, Ayatul Kursi, very famous ayah. Man zal ladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'iznih. Who is going to do intercession and shafa'at without permission of Almighty? Of course, nobody can do shafa'at without permission of Almighty. But with permission of Almighty, there is no problem. In Surah Anbiya, 21st chapter and 28th ayat, we read, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَلَا يَشْفَعُونَ إِلَّا لِمَنِ ارْتَضَى وَهُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَتِهِ مُشْفِقُونَ. He knows what is before them and what is after them, Almighty. And they, the prophets, offer no intercession except for those who are conformed to the will of God, and they all stand in awe and reverence of God's glory. So it is there, it does exist in Quran as well as in the riwayat of the Holy Prophet and Masumin. One of the hadith in which few categories are mentioned who are going to do this shafa'at, the categories consist of Anbiya, the prophets, Aimma, Masumi, Ulama, the learned scholars, the martyrs, Shuhada, and the true believer, the Mu'mini. In another hadith, our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, our sixth Imam says, it's very important hadith, there are none among the first and the last who are not in need of Muhammad's intercession in doomsday. And also in another tradition, we read few other categories are mentioned in this hadith, in which Imam says there are 5 intercessors in doomsday. Shafi'een, Quran, one who reads Quran, tries to understand the message of Quran, and then he implements the message of Quran in his life. Quran will do the shafa'ah. Number 2, observation of bonds of kinship, sila rahim. A person, if he looks after his family and other relatives, even this act will result in shafa'ah. Trusteeship, our Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, the Bil Qurba of our Prophet. They are all going to be the Shafi'een on the day of judgment. And among them, top of the list, we find the name of Hazrat Bibi Fatima Zahra Salamullah Alayha. In another hadith regarding shafa'at, it is mentioned Asif Imam says, in the resurrection day, God raises the ascetic worshipper, Abid, a person who performs ibadat very regularly and very frequently, and the learned believer to life. He will say to Abid, the ascetic worshipper, go and live in my paradise. But he will say to the learned scholar, stay here and do shafa'at on behalf of the people. Of course, this again mentions few other categories who are going to do the shafa'at on the day of judgment. Then there is another concept of barzakh, which we all discussed last Saturday as well, while responding to the question of somebody. But again, in Quran Majid we find verses which support the concept of shafa'at. Hatta idha jaa ahadahumul maut. This is Surah Mu'minun, 23rd chapter, and verse number 99 and 100. Hatta idha jaa ahadahumul maut. Qala rabbi irji'un la'alli a'malu salihah fima taraktu. Kalla innaha kalimatun huwa qailuha wa min wara'ihim barzakhun ila yawmi yub'athun. The translation: when death comes, they say, my Lord, turn me back to life in order so that I may do the good works which I have neglected. No, by no means is the answer to their request. This is what they ask, but over them is the barzakh. And this is the barzakh. The concept of barzakh comes from this ayah. And there is another verse in which we read in Surah Mu'min, Surah Ghafir, the 40th chapter of Quran, and verse number 46. The case of Pharaoh is explained in this verse, and it's very clear. An-naru yu'raduna alayha uduwan wa ghashiya wa yawma taqumu as-sa'a adkhilu ala fir'auna ashadda al-azab. It's very clear, and it's separated. The azab of barzakh, the punishment they are facing in the barzakh, and the punishment they are going to face on the day of judgment, separately mentioned in this verse. So it's very clear regarding the concept of barzakh. The translation, exact translation is, they are brought in front the fire morning and evening, and when they are raised for the final judgment, the companion of Pharaoh are cast into the severest penalty. This was Surah Raza, the 40th chapter. Another hadith of the Holy Prophet, in which he says, the grave is either a garden of bliss of the paradise or well of hellfire. Although, from the verses of Quran, we come to a conclusion that there is a third category also, which will be like sleeping during the whole period of barzakh. They will be like a person who is sleeping. They won't be knowing anything about barzakh. And when they are raised, they will finally face their punishment. The last thing that I would like to discuss is the corporal and incorporeal rewards. Of course, as we discussed last Saturday also, that both spiritually and physically will be raised. So the reward will be of both the types, spiritual as well as physical. For example, the ni'mat of Jannah, like gardens in paradise with streams flowing beneath its trees, as it is mentioned in various verses of Quran Majid, perpetual food and shade, and similarly other mentions and other things, they are all the corporal rewards to enjoy them physically. But what about spiritual rewards? There do exist spiritual rewards also, as it is mentioned in Quran Majid. For instance, Surah Tawbah, 9th chapter and 72nd verse, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَمَسَاكِنَ طَيِّبَةٍ فِي جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ وَرِضْوَانٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. Now this is important. رِضْوَانٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. The greatest of all the bliss. Even they will get, of course, the mansions and gardens and other things, but what is the greatest reward they are going to get? وَرِضْوَانٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. The supreme felicity will be the pleasure of God. Can there be anything of more worth, more precious, more prestigious for a person? Almighty God is saying that I am pleased with your actions, I am pleased with all what you did in this world. That is why we read in Quran Majid Surah Fajr, the 27th and 30th verse, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan marziya, fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. A satisfied soul, serene soul, return to your Lord, joyful and pleasing in His sight, enter my paradise and join my servants. Now last thing, we read in Quran Majid. These are all the things mentioned in the book of Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi. The name of the book is Our Belief. It's available on internet also on his site makarimshirazi.com. MAKARENSHIRAZI.com. You will find all this matter in this book, Our Belief. It's a very good book, a simple and easy to understand book. But now the question remains. There are many people, many people, even they believe in the concept of God. There is no problem in accepting the concept of Almighty. In Quran Majid we read, لَإِنْ سَأَلْتُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ. If you ask them who created earth and heaven, they will say surely Allah has created. But if you ask them to accept the concept of Qiyamah, Yawmul Qiyamah, Yawmul Hisab, they will not accept this. And they really humiliate the Holy Prophet. In the Quran Majid it is mentioned, هل أدلكم على رجل ينبئكم إذا مزقتم كل ممزق أنكم لفي خلق جديد. Let us inform you about a person, نعوذ بالله من ذلك, who is such a mental case, mentally retarded, who inform you, who tell you about the day of judgment, that when you will be in your grave, you will be raised again. أفترى على الله كذبا أم به جنة. Is he retarded? Either he is retarded or he is saying the falsehood. He is lying. So there was a big problem even for the mushrikeen. It was not a problem for them to accept the concept of God. At least they were believing in God. They were believing in more than one God. So the concept of God was not a problem for them. The problem was to accept the concept of Yawmul Qiyamah, the concept of Doomsday, the concept of Yawmul Hisab, the day of accountability. It was really a big problem for them. Why? One of the scholars mentioned in his speeches, one of his speeches, that let us try to understand this with an example. There was the concept of Rasm Bismillah. I don't know if our youngsters know about this Rasm Bismillah. Earlier, many years ago, there was no concept of school, kindergarten, Montessori. There was no such thing. But there was the concept of Rasm Bismillah. What actually it was, a child was used to brought before the Maulana. And the Maulana was asked, Maulana sahab, Bismillah karaiye. What does it mean? Bismillah karaiye. The Maulana will say, beta say Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. And that child will say Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Of course, as you and we prepare for the entrance test, the parents were supposed to do very hard work. They were supposed to make the student and the child ready for this Rasm Bismillah. They used to work very hard. He was taught many times, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, 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 so that they might not result in any humiliation or insult at the time of Rasm Bismillah. But what actually happened in the case of one student, one child, he was brought before Maulana, and Maulana was asking him, Beta, bolo Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, say Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. The child was silent. He did not say anything. He was quiet. He did not say anything. Second time, Maulana said he might be shy. He is not feeling that comfortable. He said, okay, Beta, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. The child was silent. He did not say anything again. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. Now that Maulana was very angry, and he asked the parents, what is this? बोला मौलाना आप हमने तो बहुत मेहनत किया, so I don't know what actually happened. हमारे सामने तो फरवर बोलता है और यहाँ पर भी he is not looking that shy. I don't know what actually happened with him. He is not saying Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Then the child was asked in private, बेटा तुम क्यों Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim नहीं बोलते? क्यों नहीं बोल रहे Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim? There is no problem in saying Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, but I know once I say Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, then Maulvi Sahib will say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And then I will say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, then Maulvi Sahib will say Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim, then Maliki Yawmiddin, then Iyaka Na'budu, wa Iyaka Nasta'in, the whole Surah Fatiha, then Surah Baqarah, then Surah Al-Imran, up to Surah Wan-Nas. So I don't want to say Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim so that I don't need to say Alhamdulillah. So this was the problem with the mushrikeen also. If they start accepting the concept of Qiyamah, they will have to accept the concept of Jannah, the concept of hellfire, the concept of accountability. So they say, oh, we don't need to accept the concept of Qiyamah, so that we don't need to accept the concept of Jannah, Jahannam, hellfire, days, punishment, azab. You don't need to accept anything. So they decided not to accept the concept of Qiyamah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
We have one more salawat, please. We'd like to open the floor for any questions that anyone might have. Is there paper? Anyone? No? We have paper if you want to write something down.
Okay, Rajat is a separate thing. It is not with Qiyamah, associated with Qiyamah. But even then, if you want to read a brief explanation of the concept of Rajat, you can refer to the book of Dr. Tejani Samawi, Hukm Aza, Li'akuna ma'at sadiqeen. To be with the truthful, the English translation. To be with the truthful. It is briefly mentioned but eloquently, well explained in that book. To be with the truthful, by Dr. Tejani Samawi. Okay. Yes, of course, before Qiyamah. I don't exactly know about the time period, 50,000 or how many years, but at least there is a concept of Rajat. Inshallah, Imam Hussain al-Islam will come. Along with him, all other Muslims will come. All infallibles will come, inshallah. And that will be the time period of Rajat. How long it will go, I don't know. Okay. Okay. The question is, why will we be raised by our mother's name on the day of judgment? Logically, there can be doubt in the name of father, but there cannot be any doubt in the name of mother. In the West, it's not that difficult to understand this concept.
Anyone else? No? If you're shy, just feel free to write them down. We'll have them read them out.
No question means either of the two possibilities are there. Everybody has understood everything or everybody has understood nothing. I'm really thankful to you for bearing my Langra Lula Tuta Puta English. आपने कहाँ पढ़ा ये? Exactly, what actually the wordings are? Then? Yeah, that's fine. 70 hur or 70,000 hur inshallah will be given. That's okay, fine. That's accepted. But what, can you compare it with the Rizwanu min Allah? The pleasure of Almighty is pleased with you. For example, if your father gives you a car as a gift, but along with that he says that I am really pleased with you. What is more important? Maybe in the case of Allah I can't say. कार हो सकता है कि ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट हो, बट जनरली अगर आपका टीचर है, आपका कोई यानी इंस्टीट्यूट आपका बॉस है, इफ इज प्लीज विद यू, ऑफ कोर्स ये एक इनर सेटिस्फेक्शन इंसान को देता है. परवरदिगार आलम के केस में यही है. यानी लेट मी कोट अनदर हदीस दैट आई लेफ्ट. आपने क्वेश्चन किया है तो हम उसको भी थोड़ा डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. God will say to those in paradise, this is a riwayat of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. God will say to those in paradise, my love and pleasure for you is far above the bounties with which you live in this Jannah, felicity. Getting the point? So of course, everything that is given by Almighty is precious and important, but nothing can be compared with the Rizai Parvardigar. It's so important that Maulana Kainat sold his nafs against what? Marji Parvardigar. Minan nas se mayyashi nafsu ibtigha marzatillah. Agree? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
quick question. You mentioned about shafa'at today in your speech, intercession. You mentioned that all the sects in Islam do not dispute the fact of shafa'at. Can you clarify? Because what we know is the other sects say go directly to Allah. There's no wasila. Go directly to Allah. But from what I understood from your speech, that they believe that there is a wasila. Can you just expand on that? So Wahhabis and those kind of other sects, they believe.
Fine. I would like to repeat the same thing. Even in the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, which is generally distributed among the pilgrims and hajis, you will find this concept there also. That yes, we do believe in the shafa'at of the Holy Prophet. And in that book, the wordings are, even among the Shafi'in are those babies who could not come out alive. They were born and then they died in their early years. Even they will be among the Shafi'in. This is the wording of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in his book. So the concept of shafa'at does exist everywhere, even in Shias and Sunnis. Of course, in the case of Shia, it's no problem. Even in the case of Sunnis, moderate Sunnis, Barelvis like, it's no problem. They all accept the concept of shafa'at. But what in the case of Wahhabis? They accept the concept of shafa'at. The concept of shafa'at does exist there also, but what they believe, they say that if you ask directly the Prophet, the time you do is ask shafa'at on the day of judgment, this will become shirk. Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi, in his commentary, Tafsir Namuna, in the very first volume, when he is discussing this verse, Man zal ladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi iznih, Ayatul Kursi, you will see there, he really objects, once you are accepting that Holy Prophet is going to do this, and then you have objection in if we ask the Holy Prophet directly, the kindly do shafa'at for us on the day of judgment. What nonsense is this? What nonsense is this? It's all rubbish. If Holy Prophet is authorized to do shafa'at, what's the problem? If we ask Holy Prophet directly. So there is no problem. As far as concept of shafa'at is concerned, it does exist. And every sect of Muslim, every sect of Ummat Muslimah, they accept the concept of shafa'at. But what they say, we are not allowed to ask directly. We cannot ask and request Holy Prophet directly, kindly do shafa'at for us on the day of judgment. This is the problem. Hope you are clear now. Yes, this is the concept of Wahhabism. This is what Wahhabis say. As far as us is concerned, Ya wajihan indallah, ishwalana indallah. Dua tawassul. Ya wajihan indallah, ishwalana indallah. Do shafa'at for us on the day of judgment. There is no problem in asking them. Okay?
Any more questions?
And जो शिया नहीं है, they will be called their mother's name.
Reference?
The reference is it's not a short book, but it's a combination of these.
Anyway, अगर होगी तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
नहीं, तो उससे वो ये it is accepted in the Shia world.
Okay. Yeah, honestly speaking, as a student of religious sciences, even I have not gone through this hadith. I have not gone. लेकिन हो सकता है कि हो, मैं मना नहीं कर रहा, मेरे कोई ऐसा कोई कामिल परफेक्ट तो मेरी रीडिंग नहीं है, इट्स पॉसिबल, मगर यानी इससे कोई हमारे मेजर कॉन्सेप्ट के ऊपर कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. इज इट गोइंग टू अफेक्ट? हाँ, ऑफकोर्स, ठीक है, इंशाल्लाह जिनके पास विलायत है वो सबके तो जन्नत में जाएंगे इंशाल्लाह, बिल्कुल. अगर कोई ऐसा गलत काम नहीं किया तो फिर मार खा के जाएंगे तुम.
Any other questions? No? Can I have a salawat, please? I'd like to thank Maulana for taking the time